What if I told you that today you'll create a stunning Heliconia watercolor painting from scratch, no matter what your skill level? So grab your brushes because I'm going to guide you every step of the way. Let's get into it. Welcome to my studio. This week we're going to be painting Heliconia, this beautiful small botanical piece. And if you're worried that you can't draw or don't like drawing, I'm going to provide you with a free outline that looks like this, which you can grab on our free Patreon level. I'll talk to you a little bit about this later on, but let's just run through materials really quickly. Just a handful of colours today, and the paints I'm using are from Mungyo. These are the colours that I've chosen, but you can use an orange, a red, a yellow, a green and a brown. That's all you will need. We want to keep it simple. In every video, you'll hear me say, use what you have. By that, I mean swatching out your colours in the way that I have here so that you can easily match your colours to your watercolour paints. I have made a video on that, which I will pin to the top of your screen right now, just over here. But this is the set that I'm working from, and you will see that every colour in my watercolour set has been swatched out from dark through to light, adding water each time. In the pinned video, I explain how to do this, and I've made them into a little book so that I have easy access to all my watercolours this way. You can see that by flicking through my book like this, I can easily see how these colours look when they're swatched out, rather than mixing endless colour charts. This way is so easy, it will change the way that you match your watercolours. Like I said, check out that pinned video where I explain it in more detail. But today we are focusing on this little piece. The colours that I've chosen from my Mungyo set are Scarlet, Permanent Red, Lemon Yellow, Olive Green, Olive Brown and Vandyke Brown. Like I said, you'll basically need an orange, a red, a lemon, a green and a brown. Okay, so you don't have to be colour accurate with this. We're just using these colours today. Just use your favourite brushes, but I've got a handful here that I'm going to probably work through bit by bit. So I'm going to start off by using my number 8. This is a round from my set from Craftamo. I also have my current favourite brush, which is my number 4 Silverline. It's got a lovely fine point. I've got 2 blender brushes here. One is from my set from Craftamo, which are no longer available because of course we have now sold out. But in its place, I'm going to be using a small eradicator from Rosemary & Co. All the materials that I'm going to be using, I will link in the description underneath this video in case I'm going a little bit too fast for you, and you can check them out at your own pace. I've traced on my drawing simply by printing this out, just scribbling on the back with an HB pencil, flipping it over, attaching it to my watercolour paper with some washi tape, and then going over it with a 0.5 mechanical pencil, and you're left with a simple outline that looks like this. With your outline in place, you can now begin painting. I'm going to start by dropping some water into my palette here. I'm going to begin by mixing the lemon. So this is lemon yellow. You could use a cadmium lemon, something like that, anything with a yellow tone. Then I'm going to add Scarlet. Our first washes will be really watery, so we don't have to worry about getting it wrong. Don't be frightened about adding paint to paper. Our tutorials are all about learning to paint as you paint. If you've been following me for a while, you'd have heard me mention this concept of learning to paint as you paint, and what that means, quite simply, is that you'll be painting along with me and learning as you go, because I explain everything every step of the way. We can work on this wet on wet. I think that will be a really good way to make a start. So I'm making sure that my brush is clean. I'm going to begin by using my number 4 Silverline. If you've got my set from Craftamo, the number 4 brush would work very well. I'm also going to add a little bit of water to my palette here on the side so that I've got a clean bit just to pick up working wet and wet. Okay, let's make a start by taking the water all the way down the stem. I'd also like to thank Adele for supplying us with this week's watercolour reference photograph. Adele is a friend of mine and is also our Facebook moderator. So I'll tell you a little bit about our Facebook group in a minute. Adele is a fantastic photographer and often very kindly donates photographs so that we can use them in our tutorials. So big shout out to Adele and thank you. I'm taking this water just to the outline. The paint is just going to go where I'm applying the water. The watercolour paper I'm using today is an unbranded. I don't even know where I got it from, so use any watercolour paper that you have. Our Facebook group has been created for you to post your finished paintings from our tutorials, so do consider joining us. We are a fantastic group. Adele, Rose, Claire, keep us safe over there. We are a wonderful community, so do consider joining us. I will link it in the description. You can also grab our older outlines from the albums folder over there, so do check us out. It's a great way of learning when you get feedback from other people. We are a very positive community. We have a zero negativity over there, so don't be frightened to join us. Okay, with that water on, I'm going to pick up a little bit of the lemon, and I'm just going to drop that on the base of each of the bracts. I think that's what they're called. Forgive me if I'm incorrect. Just going to drop that on. The paper's drying quite quickly because it's not my usual arches or fine quality paper, but that's okay. Just need to work a little bit faster with this one. So dropping that on, that's going to go where we've put the water. Nice and simple, just on the tip. Okay, just by patting and releasing that brush. Join in with us, even if you're a beginner. I'm taking this colour. This is a Scarlet, I'm just taking it down the stem. And as it hits that water, it's going to gently blur into that lemon. You see how lovely that looks? It's just going to go into that lemon. But you don't want to take it all the way down because you want to keep that lemon on the outside. Just carrying on. This is Scarlet. Just letting it do its thing. Now, at the start of this video, I said that you could get this outline for free. Every week, where applicable, we give you a free outline so that you can trace down your image. And it means that if you're a little bit nervous about drawing yourself, there's nothing wrong with tracing it down. They're completely free. My gift to you so that you can join in with us here on my channel. To grab that, you'll need to go over to Patreon, sign up, and you can have access to those. We do also have a paid membership level on Patreon, so if you're interested in really kind of leveling up your watercolour, you can check us out. I'll maybe talk to you a little bit about that later on. But for now, we're just using the Scarlet, coming down, letting it blur into that existing wash. This is one of the beautiful things about watercolour, is its ability to just have this lovely soft look. And remember, this is just our first layer. We're going to be building up on this later on. So just take it where you roughly want that to go. This is such a lovely little piece to do. Like I said, a huge thank you to Adele for letting us use your lovely reference photograph. So just letting that drop in. You can see how lovely that blur is. Just continuing down the plant. Learning to paint as you paint. The paper's drying a little bit, so I just need to speed it up a little bit. I just need to be careful where I'm going. And just carrying on down. I've kept the reference photograph in screen this week for you. But again, you can download that for free over on Patreon, as I've mentioned just now. Okay, so you've just got your initial wash on. And then I'm going to take a little bit of that red colour. So this is Permanent Red from Mungyo. Cleaning my brush. And while that's still kind of waiting to dry, I'm just going to pick this up with a little bit of that yellow, a little bit of that orange, and we're just going to maybe just drop it in here and there. It's still quite damp, the paper, so we're just going to take that into just one or two areas just to enhance. Remember, this is just our first layer, and we're going to be really bumping up the colour later on. The first wash is pretty much just to guide you, to kind of remind you where you're going to go later, and we're just kind of mapping in the colours so that we know where to go. Just dropping it in, patting and releasing that brush, ready to go a little later. Okay, just keep an eye, pat and release. I'm just going to mix a little bit of olive brown and olive green. So olive brown and olive green, just to the side here. Cleaning my brush, and we're going to go olive green, just straight down this one. This is wet on dry, so this time I'm not wetting the paper because it's such a small area. we can put this initial wash on straight away as it is. And then I'm kind of just mixing the two and applying on the others. Just really carefully work around this, making sure that that's dry because you don't want to get wet paint on there because it's going to blur. Just use it, you know, just to pull that colour down. Let's add a little bit more there. We're going to be adding detail later on, don't forget. So just very carefully bring that line down. This is such a lovely plant to paint. I haven't painted this before, so I'm painting with you. I'm learning to paint as I paint. I'm painting along with you, so I haven't painted it before. I don't do tests to see how they're going to turn out. So you're literally learning my thought process as I go along, and hopefully you find that helpful. And now all we can do is let this dry. It needs to be completely dry before we add the next layer. So this is going to take about 20 minutes or so, but you'll notice that there are little bits of retraction here. This is normal with watercolour, so we're just going to use that brush to push it back into that pencil line and make the edges tidy. You can also use your eradicator brush, just dip it in the water, and you can soften out any of those hard edges just by wiggling that brush like this. I'm just getting rid of that hard edge there. I'm going to give that a few minutes to dry. While we're waiting for this to dry, let me tell you a little bit about my paid membership level of Patreon. There are 3 paid membership tiers where you can even have one-on-one time with me. So let's just take a little look to see what you get. When you join Patreon, you will have access to exclusive content that you just won't find here on YouTube. Whether you're a seasoned artist or just dipping your brush into botanical watercolor, you may want to join us here on Patreon where the magic happens. And with Patreon's new collections tab, it makes accessing the tutorials super easy. When you join us here on Patreon, we dive deep into the art of botanical watercolours, from vibrant blooms to fine detail, and I'm here to guide you every step of the way. We have 3 membership levels to suit your skill and budget, and we even have a mentorship and coaching level, so if you're serious about developing your skills, then this could be the level for you. And now you can join Patreon for free, which will give you access to all of our YouTube traceables, which will be delivered weekly to your inbox, so no more scrolling through for the images. So if you are ready to embark on a watercolour adventure, unlock exclusive content and join a community that celebrates the beauty of botanicals, hit that join button, which I will link in the description. Leave and join Patreon at any time. I'd love to see you there, and it's also a way that you can support my channel. The Patreon tutorials you won't find here on YouTube. Indeed, all of our YouTube tutorials are full length so that you can watch them in their entirety. You don't have to pay to watch them. They are my gift to you. All I ask is if you would kindly hit the like button below if you're enjoying it so far, and perhaps you'd like to consider subscribing to my channel to help me grow and reach the audience that I would like to reach by just reaching out to new people, and hopefully YouTube will show me to more people. And perhaps you'd like to introduce yourself in the comments, say hello, let me know what you're thinking of this video so far. Right, we're going to let this dry and I'll be right back. Everything is completely dry. It took about 20 minutes or so. Here is where the fun starts. We've got our base layers in and we can start to build them up by using wet on dry this time. So for our first wash, we used wet and wet, where we wet the paper and dropped in the pigment. This has now given us a strong foundation on which to build. I'm going to go in with my number 4 brush again, and this time we need to pay attention to where our darker colours are. I'm going to mix Scarlet with a tiny bit of red. We can kind of bring these two together now. And then I'm going to have another puddle of Scarlet and red with a tiny bit of Vandyke brown. A bit more red. If you have got these Mungyo paints, the colour payoff is very, very good. You don't need much at all to get a strong colour payoff. And we're going to have a tiny bit of yellow. As I said, I'm going to list all the materials in the description box underneath this video. I'll also put a link to the Rosemary & Co Eradicator there. Another brush I recommend from Rosemary, actually I'm not using it today, actually I will. This is my number 2 Snowdrop round. It's a Snowdrop pointed round. It's got a lovely snap to it which gives good control. I will put the link to that one as well. I'm going to take a tiny bit of green and a tiny bit of this colour, and we can now put this on to this section here. On the photograph there's a little snap, and I'm not going to put that in. I'm just going to paint this on, picking up a bit more brown as we hit this part. So I'm just going over the colour that I've applied. So we can take that to, this actually blends into this section. So what we're going to do is we can pick that up, pick up a bit more of that green and start to take it in to this section here with a little bit of Vandyke brown. Put that on its own. Pick that up and just start to pull that line down. And we can just use some sort of flicky lines to take it to the out. Ooh, gone outside the line there. Take it. If you do that, you can extend the line. Just take it down the outside of this. Take off the excess, and we can start to just do like this kind of scratchy effect coming down, like that. Okay, so we've got the beginnings of that shape. So now I'm picking this colour up, and I'm bringing it down the entire line. There's still quite a bit of water in this, so we can strengthen it up later if necessary. And as we hit the bottom part, the plain red mix, so we've got the scarlet and the red together. Coming down over the line that we've now created with our wet and wet wash. So we're following that pattern. And we're not taking it any further than around here. Cleaning my brush, taking off the excess water, and now what you want to do is blur that into the lemon colour that we did. Starting here, I'm going to wiggle and pull into the yellow, picking up that pigment and pulling it into the areas that I want it to go. It comes down as far as here, and then we've got a little gap there. So take it as far as you want to create this soft line. Coming down with the orange. Following the line that you created at the start. Just going to add a bit more red to that. And we're going again over, I'm going to zoom in so you can see exactly what I'm doing. I'm going to go over this line here. So we're going to go wet on dry to about here. You need to give yourself a bit of leeway to blend. And then we can come around. Again, just take it to here. And that's your solid colour. Okay, cleaning my brush, patting it dry, and then with the stamp brush, starting here, because you've got a little reservoir, you can blend it, but not too far down. And then you're going to keep cleaning your brush and patting it dry, and then just keep an eye on where you're blending it to. So we've got this other line here. And if you want to strengthen up your colours as you go along, you can drop in some more pigment. If you find that you've put too much pigment on, use your blender brush or your eradicator and just gently pat it like this. I'm going to carry on the entire process sped up for you because it's a repetition of what I'm doing. I don't normally speed up my videos, but it would be rather dull to watch me doing every single one. So I'm going to play you some beautiful music and hopefully you'll enjoy that while I paint the rest of this. So here is where we left it. Everything's completely dry now. So we need to think about building up our final layers to bring this to its conclusion. I've cleaned down my palette, so I'm going to add some more water, just a few little droplets. I'm going to use olive green. I'm going to have a small puddle of olive green, just a tiny bit on its own there, and another small mix of Vandyke brown. These are small puddles. We don't need very much of those. We can leave those to one side. I'm going to mix two colours together, Scarlet and red. And then I'm going to have another mix of whatever's left on the brush of that red. To that, I'm going to add a tiny bit of Vandyke brown. I'm adding Vandyke brown to this so that we can have a darker colour to add a little bit of a shaded colour to some of these. So when we're looking at the top section, this little curve here, you can see from the photo that we've got a little bit of a darker colour on some of that. So I'm going to just take it, I'm cleaning my brush, always patting it on the kitchen paper to take off that excess water. And then we're going to merge this colour into the existing wash as we did before. And we are essentially accentuating this colour. And it comes down about as far as here before it starts to really become more of that red tone. So we're going to be picking up a bit more of that red tone and adding it to the bottom. So they merge together really, really nicely. Now towards the bottom of each of these bracts, we have a kind of darker colour. So I'm picking up that brown mix and I'm going to be just dropping that in. Cleaning my brush. And then once again, using that same process of patting and just blending it in with that damp brush. Keep in mind that you don't want to take that colour too far up each bract, picking up some of that original mix and letting it blur into that darker value. Cleaning my brush and then blending it into the yellow tone that we have. Note how far down this is coming. Now some of this colour will come into this area where it hits that part. So just take your time, clean my brush in that small little puddle there, and then just blending that through. If you feel like you need to enhance any of the colours, just come down. You can keep building these colours up because we've used really soft layers. You're not going to get a muddy overlay. I'm going to take this to here. So we've got a little bit of that transparent colour there. Cleaning my brush, patting it dry, and then using this to pull into that lovely yellow colour that we see. And then picking up that darker value, we're going to take it to the bottom and let it blur. So what this does is it adds a little bit of contrast. Clean your brush and let it blur. And just add it. Clean your brush. Same process and let it blur. Maybe down the outside of a bit of some of the stems. So where we've got this connection, you can go to the outside edge of that bit and always blend that through with a damp brush. Just soften that and pat it like this. So I'm going to go back to the original two mixes. We're going to have Scarlet and that lovely red, but they need strengthening. You can come down one or two of the stems. If you feel they need that push of colour, which these do, maybe a bit more red there. You can come down, paint your colour on, and then clean your brush, pat it dry, and then use this damp brush to soften those colours together. Because we've got a few layers on now, it does make that blending a little bit easier. So you'll find that they merge really nicely. So at this point, you should be looking at something like this if you're painting along with me. Remember, you can pause the video, you can paint along with me, you can download it, you can save it to your favourites. You can create your own little playlist of my botanical painting tutorials. We do have a full playlist actually of botanical painting tutorials, which I'll pop right at the end of this video, just after the outro, or just as I'm finishing up, and you can watch all of them. They're all free. Remember, you may need to join Patreon to get the earlier ones, and also you can grab your outline. Like I said, it's all completely free. So my gift to you so that you can join in. I'm picking up some of that olive green, and I want to accentuate this one. It's not quite dark enough. So we're taking this wet on dry over this particular piece. Just a tiny bit. You can see how much paint I've mixed up. Very, very little. Bringing that down. And I do feel I need a little bit more. Just on, I think I'm going to take it on this one here just to brighten it up. Just bring that line down, nice and slowly. So we've covered wet on wet, wet on dry, and we've done a little bit of colour glazing. If you're new to watercolour and you've always been a little bit scared of it, because it is daunting, isn't it, when you're working with new mediums and you're not sure how they're going to perform, give this a go, because it's such a lovely little painting to do. And if you go outside the pencil line, as I have, it doesn't matter. You can just use that moment just to blend in. I'm going to pick up some of the other colour, which is this lovely olive brown. And I'm just going to take this kind of down the bottom area here. Doesn't have to be super colour accurate, so I'm dropping that in. You could use green gold, you could use quinacridone gold, something like that. And then the Vandyke brown, I'm just going to sort of splatter that in, just to give it that kind of textured look. We're just going to put a bit more on here. Just drop it in, just like that. And I think that's fine. I'm just taking off the excess on my paper here, and I'm just going to just do a little bit of a contrasting line here. Going back to my green, this is of course olive green, and what I'm going to do is just enhance some of these lines here. So you'll notice that there's a definite line. Take off the excess, we don't want it to be too strong, and just pattern it in, and we can go around. Like, this is not a super accurate painting, it's not meant to be, it's just meant to be learning how to paint botanicals. And if you're new to botanical painting, and you've always wanted to give it a go, then try this one, because it's a lovely starting point. And if you don't like this one, we've got a good few others to go at, which I'll put in that playlist that I mentioned. We're just dropping in the screen contrast. Going back to that mix. And I'm just going to pop this on the outside edge here. And here. Like that. A bit more of that red. You can see you can keep building these colours up and get this glorious depth of colour. And just drop in that darker value. I don't want to do too much more. I'm going to keep this nice and simple. I'm just taking a damp brush here to kind of merge these colours together. Like I said, I haven't painted one of these before, so this is a nice one to start your botanical painting journey if you've never used it, if you've never painted it before. Remember, this is just this is our YouTube tutorial. You do not have to go over to Patreon to buy this. This is free. The Patreon tutorials are very different subjects, and oftentimes they'll be in different episodes, longer episodes, and they are exclusive to my patrons. You won't find them on YouTube at all. They're just written for my patrons alone, because you're very kind and you support me over there. So it's, I think, only right that you should have access to them alone. You alone should have access to those special tutorials. And you all seem to like them, so thank you. As I showed you in that little clip, you know, if you want to have one-on-one time with me, then join our Rose level, our Rose membership tier, where you can have one-on-one time with me every month and on a Zoom call or a video call, and you can submit 4 pieces of work. Now, I'm going to call this finished. I've really enjoyed painting this today. This has been a first for me, and I've really, really enjoyed it. Do join in with us and let us see your finished paintings over on our Facebook group, which I will link in the description box, along with the Patreon link and a link to the materials that I've used today. And of course, you can grab that free outline on Patreon. Remember, make yourself a little colour chart that looks like this, because it does make the colour swatching really, really easy. I'm in the process of making this new little book where I've got all my colours swatched out, and that video that I showed you at the start will help you match your colours if you don't have the same colours as me, because you'd have heard me say time and again, use what you have. It's really, really important that you get into the habit of mixing your colours, swatching out your colours to see how they perform on paper, because everybody knows that in the tin you can't really tell. Join in, have fun. Remember, if you've enjoyed this video, to give it a thumbs up below. I'd really appreciate it. So now let's take a moment to appreciate our finished painting.
If I can't have you, I don't want you to have